One of the most unsettling categories of Hollywood lore involves figures who seemed simply to vanish without a trace. Did you know there were many old Hollywood stars who came to fame but immediately vanished without any trace? Did they run away to start a new life? Were they taken by foul play? Did they meet with an accident whose evidence was never recovered? Let's uncover today what actually happened to them. 1. John Spangler, 1923. Unknown. The actress who vanished in 1949. Jean Elizabeth Spangler was born on September 2, 1923, in Seattle, Washington, though she spent most of her life in Los Angeles, California. Little is known about her early childhood, but by her late teenage years, she was pursuing dance and modeling opportunities. She eventually found her way onto film sets in the 1940s, seeking fame in the competitive world of Hollywood. Spangler's film career was modest but promising. She worked as a dancer and took on bit parts in a handful of studio pictures, mostly uncredited. There are records of her involvement in projects like When My Baby Smiles at Me, 1948, and Young Man with a Horn, 1950, although her actual screen time was limited. She also did some work as a nightclub dancer. By 1949, she was still struggling to achieve star status, but her presence in the industry was more than a mere footnote. She was known to casting directors and had acquaintances among established performers. Despite a life that might have seemed glamorous from the outside, living in Los Angeles, appearing in movies, mingling with showbiz folks, Jean Spangler also faced real challenges. She was a divorcee, having married Dexter Benner in 1942. The couple divorced in 1946, and they had a daughter, Christine. Spangler's personal life involved custody disputes, financial worries, and the typical ups and downs of a single parent trying to make ends meet. On the evening of October 7, 1949, Jean Spangler left her home in Los Angeles, reportedly telling her sister-in-law that she was going to meet her ex-husband about a late child support payment, then work on a film set afterward. She wore a simple outfit, carried a handbag, and was seen leaving in good spirits. This was the last confirmed sighting of her. Later that night, or possibly into the early hours of October 8th, no one knows precisely what happened to Jean Spangler. She never came home, and her family began to worry. After waiting a reasonable amount of time to see if she had simply been detained, her family contacted the police. An investigation was launched. In a city as large as Los Angeles, missing person cases were not uncommon, but the disappearance of someone attached to the film business drew extra attention. A wave of sensational headlines followed, some insinuating that Spangler might have had unsavory connections or that she was involved with someone powerful. Others speculated about marital disputes. The police tried to trace her last known whereabouts, but her trail grew cold surprisingly fast. 2 days after she vanished, Jean Spangler's purse was found in Griffith Park, a sprawling urban wilderness area in Los Angeles, known for its iconic observatory, hiking trails, and rugged terrain. The purse strap was torn, as if it had been yanked or involved in a struggle. Inside the purse was a note, handwritten, but it was incomplete. It read, "Kirk, can't wait any longer, going to see Dr. Scott. It will work best this way while Mother is away." The note ended abruptly, leaving investigators with a host of questions. Who was Kirk? Who was Dr. Scott? What exactly was it that could not wait any longer? The partial nature of the note suggested it was either accidentally torn or that something prevented her from finishing it. Rumors and theories sprouted like wildfire. Some people immediately pointed to the actor Kirk Douglas, a rising star at the time, because Spangler had worked as an extra in the film Young Man with a Horn, in which Douglas starred. Kirk Douglas publicly stated he had only a passing acquaintance with Spangler and knew nothing about her whereabouts. Police interviewed him, but no evidence pointed to his involvement. As for Dr. Scott, no solid lead emerged. No one by that name came forward or was credibly identified by friends or family. One line of speculation was that Dr. Scott might have referred to someone performing illegal medical procedures, possibly an abortion, which was unlawful at the time. Another possibility was that it was code for something else entirely. Some suggest Spangler encountered foul play by an unknown acquaintance, possibly during a date or illegal procedure, with her purse's discovery in Griffith Park, hinting at an attack. Others believe she fell into criminal entanglements through potential connections with the Los Angeles underworld, then rife with figures like Mickey Cohen. Another theory points to a secret abortion gone wrong, given the cryptic note referencing Dr. Scott and Spangler's possible pregnancy. A less common possibility is that she vanished voluntarily to escape personal troubles, though those close to her doubt she would abandon her daughter. Finally, some conspiracy theorists tie the mysterious Kirk in her note to actor Kirk Douglas, but no credible evidence ever linked him to her disappearance. Second, Marie Empress. How did the silent film star Marie Empress, billed as the most beautiful woman in pictures, vanish from the ocean liner RMS Orduña, unnoticed by over 1,000 passengers and crew? Had the popular singer, dancer, and actress jumped, fallen, or been pushed overboard? Or did she deploy her acting skills to flee in disguise? Even now, a century later, her disappearance remains a haunting mystery of the sea. On October 27, 1919, the Orduña docked in New York after departing Liverpool 11 days earlier, stopping in Halifax. A first-class passenger, Empress was nowhere to be found. The crew searched the vessel 3 times, but her stateroom yielded only untouched food and a telegram for a hotel reservation. She had been seen earlier dressed entirely in black, possibly mourning and wearing a veil. A talkative stewardess recalled her good humor and nightly requests for sandwiches, which went uneaten that final evening. Newspapers worldwide speculated on her fate. Some suggested foul play or suicide, while others suspected a publicity stunt. Rumors spread that Empress, once a noted male impersonator, may have blended into the crew. She had staged pranks before, fueling theories she soon would resurface. Yet her trunks went unclaimed and eventually returned to Liverpool. Born Mary Ann Louisa Taylor in Birmingham, Empress had built a flamboyant resume and carefully obscured her background. Officially, British authorities declared she had jumped overboard and drowned somewhere off Cape Cod. Yet no definitive proof emerged. With her film roles lost to time and her stage performances undocumented, Marie Empress left the world with little more than an enduring enigma. Where did she go, and why did she disappear that October night? In the centuries since, her story has largely faded, yet the puzzle remains, reminding us that even among the famous, mysteries find closure. 3. Glenn Miller, 1904 unknown. Big band legend lost in flight, 1944. Alton Glenn Miller was born on March 1, 1904, in Clarinda, Iowa. He spent much of his youth in Nebraska and Colorado, picking up the trombone as a teenager. Miller's passion for music led him to drop out of college to pursue a full-time professional career. He joined various bands, worked as a freelance trombonist, and arranged music for notable band leaders of the era. By the mid-1930s, he was arranging for the Dorsey Brothers and Ray Noble. However, it wasn't until he formed his own big band that his distinctive sound, which often featured a clarinet holding the melodic line while saxophones harmonized around it, made him a household name. Glenn Miller's orchestra became one of the most popular and influential big bands of the swing era. Hits like In the Mood, Moonlight Serenade, Tuxedo Junction, and Pennsylvania 6-5000 dominated airwaves. The band recorded prolifically, headlined major venues, and appeared in movies like Sun Valley Serenade, 1941, and Orchestra Wives, 1942. Miller's success was not just commercial. Critics hailed him for creating an instantly recognizable musical style. He combined a smooth, lyrical approach with the infectious rhythms of swing, capturing the public imagination and selling millions of records. By the early 1940s, Glenn Miller was a genuine superstar, the face of an era in American popular music. When the United States entered World War II, many entertainers joined the war effort, whether through USO tours or enlistment. Glenn Miller, at the peak of his career, volunteered for service. He was commissioned as a captain in the U.S. Army Air Forces, later the U.S. Air Force. His mission was to modernize military band music, boost troop morale, and bring a slice of home to American soldiers stationed abroad. Miller formed the Army Air Force Band, which performed for troops in the United States and eventually traveled to England. They put on hundreds of concerts, broadcast radio programs, and made recordings intended to be shared with servicemen around the globe. Miller believed strongly in the power of music to sustain morale during the hardship of war. On December 15, 1944, Glenn Miller boarded a small single-engine Norseman aircraft in England. He planned to fly to Paris to make arrangements for a Christmas performance for Allied troops who had recently liberated the city. At this point, the war in Europe was still raging, though Allied forces had made significant advances. The flight departed from RAF Twinwood Farm in Bedfordshire, England, heading across the English Channel. Weather conditions that day were notoriously poor, cold, with a low cloud ceiling and limited visibility. The plane never arrived in Paris. In the immediate aftermath, confusion reigned. The flight was not a standard passenger route, but rather a small, somewhat hastily arranged trip. This meant that official records were sparse. The disappearance was overshadowed in part by major military events. The Battle of the Bulge began around this time, consuming the attention of the Allied command. It took several days before a full-scale search was launched, and by then, the window to find wreckage or survivors had likely closed. Quarta René Jean Falcanetti. René Jean Falcanetti, better known simply as Falcanetti, delivered a performance in 1928's The Passion of Joan of Arc that critics continue to revere as among the greatest ever committed to film. Directed by Carl Theodor Dreyer, this silent masterpiece demanded relentless emotional depth, which Falcanetti provided through her expressive face and raw vulnerability. Despite receiving such acclaim, she made no further notable appearances on the silver screen. Instead, she seemed to vanish from the film industry, prompting speculation about why someone with so much promise would step away. In the years that followed, Falcanetti primarily focused on theater, occasionally touring with stage productions in France and Switzerland. Stories circulated that her immersion in the role of Joan exacted a heavy psychological toll, driving her to seek distance from the public eye. When World War II broke out, Falcanetti's situation grew more complicated, and she eventually relocated to South America. Information about her private life became scarce, fueling rumors that she had disappeared entirely. Some accounts suggest she battled depression, while others imply she was simply tired of fame and wanted solitude. Tragically, Falcanetti died in 1946, although the exact circumstances surrounding her passing are often debated. One version holds that she died in Buenos Aires, Argentina, possibly as a result of ongoing health issues or mental distress. The lack of clear details only heightened the mystery surrounding her final years. While her disappearance from the screen was not as abrupt or dramatic as other Hollywood stories, her decision to retreat from cinema left fans and film historians longing for the performances she never gave. Today, her legacy lives on through the immortal portrayal of Joan of Arc, a shining testament to her artistry and a reminder of how a single film can define an actor's career, and a lasting, enduring myth. 5. Shawn Flynn. The son of Hollywood legend Errol Flynn, Shawn was also a photojournalist, adventurer, and actor. His fearless pursuit of dangerous assignments during the Vietnam War eventually led to his disappearance on April 6, 1970, while he was covering the conflict in Cambodia. Due to the influence of his father, Shawn was given ample opportunities to develop an acting career, having made his debut at the age of 15 on an episode of Errol's television show, The Errol Flynn Theater. Shawn's pivot to journalism was the result of becoming disillusioned with acting, searching for a more meaningful and adventurous career of his own. He eventually formed part of a group of high-risk photographers who would regularly go into combat areas to take the best pictures possible. Shawn and his partner, Dana Stone, who was reporting on behalf of CBS, were seized by members of the Viet Cong while heading to a press conference in Saigon by motorcycle. Their bodies were never found. 6. Connie Converse, singer-songwriter, disappeared 1974. Connie Converse was an American singer-songwriter in the 1950s, a pioneer of the singer-songwriter genre before it was truly recognized. She recorded a series of home demos in the 1950s, but commercial success eluded her. Frustrated with her lack of recognition and feeling the weight of personal issues, Converse wrote letters to family and friends in 1974, packed up her belongings, and drove away, never to be seen again. Her disappearance was not accompanied by the massive publicity that typically surrounds a Hollywood figure. However, decades later, Connie Converse's music resurfaced, and critics hailed her as a visionary singer-songwriter ahead of her time. Efforts to locate her or confirm her fate have failed. The Connie Converse story has grown into a cult legend, especially among folk and indie music fans. 7. Richie Edwards, Manic Street Preachers, disappeared 1995. Richie James Edwards was the lyricist and rhythm guitarist for the Welsh alternative rock band Manic Street Preachers. Renowned for his intense stage persona and introspective, often dark lyrics, Edwards struggled with depression, self-harm, and other personal issues. On February 1, 1995, just before the band was to embark on a U.S. tour, Edwards vanished. His car was later found near the Severn Bridge, a known site for suicides. However, no body was ever recovered, leading some to speculate that he orchestrated his own disappearance or encountered foul play. In 2008, he was declared presumed dead, but fans continue to wonder if he might still be alive. 8. Amelia Heheart. Amelia Heheart made history by becoming the first female aviator to fly solo non-stop across the Atlantic Ocean. A female icon and celebrated author, she promoted commercial air travel and wrote many best-selling books about her adventures in the sky. With a passion for pushing the envelope and shattering records, she embarked on what would be her last flight on July 2, 1937. Her goal was ambitious: to become the first female pilot to circumnavigate the world. Heheart boarded a Lockheed Model 10E Electra airplane alongside her navigator, Fred Noonan. The pair were last seen in Law, New Guinea, where they made their last stop before the incident. Investigators believe the plane ran out of fuel somewhere over the central Pacific Ocean and crashed near Howland Island. Heheart was pronounced dead 1 year and 6 months after hers and Noonan's disappearance. 9. Oscar Zeta Aosta. The Mexican-American attorney made a name for himself by being an activist in the Chicano movement, as well as for his novels, 1972's Autobiography of a Brown Buffalo and 1973's The Revolt of the Cockroach People. He disappeared on May 27, 1974, aged 39, while traveling in Mazatlan, Sinaloa, Mexico. His son, Marco Aosta, would later state that while the body was never found, his father got into a fight and got killed. Zeta was a close friend of author Hunter S. Thompson, who immortalized him by recounting their adventures while traveling to Las Vegas in the autobiographical novel Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, published on November 11, 1971. 10. Tammy Lynn Lepert. Lynn was a successful actress, model, and beauty queen before her disappearance on July 6, 1983. She was 18 years old. Lynn rose to fame in the beauty pageant world, winning over 280 crowns from nearly 300 contests. She quickly transitioned into a modeling career that had her posing for CoverGirl magazine in October 1978. The model appeared in various films, but her most famous role was her participation in Scarface in 1983. After the shooting of the movie Spring Break had finished, the model went unaccompanied to a party one weekend and returned a different person, according to Wing Flanagan, one of her closest friends. Months before her vanishing, Tammy reportedly started showing signs of mental distress, including a fear of being murdered. She was evaluated at a medical center and cleared of drug or alcohol use, but her behavior persisted. The model was last seen in Cocoa Beach, Florida. Her mother struggled for years trying to find a culprit, with people such as serial killer Christopher Wilder and kidnapper John Crutchley being considered suspects. Harold Lewis, a Cocoa Beach detective, said in 1985 that he received 2 telephone calls from an anonymous woman claiming that Tammy was alive and pursuing a career as a nurse. 11th. Barbara Newhall Follett. Touted as a child prodigy novelist, Barbara Newhall Follett published her first novel, The House Without Windows, when she was just 12 years old. She followed her first publication with another, The Voyage of the Norman D, in 1928, when she was 14 years old. Described as a child of nature by historians, Barbara often expressed fondness for the wilderness in her stories and poems. Deeply sensitive, her heart was shattered when her father left her mother for another woman, which also had the side effect of damaging her family's finances. She continued writing while working as a secretary in New York City in the middle of the Great Depression. But her novels Lost Island and Travels Without a Donkey failed to reach the acclaim of her previous work. Barbara met Nickerson Rogers in 1931 and spent the summer walking the Appalachian Trail to the Massachusetts border. The couple then traveled to Spain and Switzerland, exploring the Alps and other natural wonders. They married in July 1934, and while their union was initially happy, Barbara expressed dissatisfaction with her life in letters to close friends. 4 years later, in 1938, Follett began suspecting her husband of being unfaithful and fled her home the following year, never to be seen again. 12th. Weldon Keys. Keys was an American painter, jazz pianist, filmmaker, and poet. He became famous as an icon of the Beat generation of mid-20th century American society, with his works being frequently featured in publications like The New Yorker and Time. Despite his artistic success, Keys struggled with personal issues and has been known to have suffered manic depression. He disappeared on July 18, 1955, in San Francisco. Rumors of him having taken his own life began circulating after his car was found abandoned on the Marin County side of the Golden Gate Bridge. But without his body, nothing could be confirmed. His legacy remains shrouded in mystery to this day, with friends later reporting to local outlets that Keys had spoken about his desire to jump from the bridge or to leave for Mexico and never look back. 13. Elenia Karesi. The eldest daughter of famous Italian singers Albano Carisi and Romina Power disappeared while visiting New Orleans on January 18, 1994. Elenia was traveling alone after taking a break from her literature studies at King's College London. She sold most of her belongings in order to fund her travels across South America, making her last stop in Belize before returning to New Orleans on December 26, 1993. A couple of weeks later, Elenia was last seen in the French Quarter area, staying at a hotel with a street musician named Alexander Masekela. Having not heard from her since, her parents issued a missing person report on January 18th, and an investigation was launched that dismissed Masekela as a suspect. A security guard testified to seeing a woman matching Elenia's description jump into the Mississippi River. The Coast Guard searched the area, but nobody had ever recovered. Elenia was declared officially dead in December 2014. Harold Holt, known for being the 17th Prime Minister of Australia, Holt vanished without a trace on December 17, 1967, while swimming at Cheviot Beach, Victoria, which sparked one of the largest search efforts in the country's history. With his body unable to be found, many conspiracy theories surfaced in the aftermath of the event. Among the most outlandish was the idea of Holt being a spy from China, whose body was of the Asian nation. Tony Eggleton, a political consultant and friend of Holt's, said that he tried to confront him about the dangers of his hobby, but that the Prime Minister dismissed him, saying, "Look, Tony, what are the odds of a Prime Minister being drowned or taken by a shark?" Holt's death has been attributed to drowning, and he was later commemorated with the Harold Holt Memorial Swimming Center. 15. Zoe Mlelen. The actress, famous for her roles in Designated Survivor and NCIS, was accused by her ex-husband, J.P. Gillane, of disappearing with their child. An arrest warrant was issued in Los Angeles County against Mlelen for charges of child custody deprivation, kidnapping, and child stealing in May 2021. The incident happening in the middle of an ongoing custody dispute dating back to 2017. According to Gillane, the actress took their then 4-year-old son, Sebastian, to Toronto without his consent. Mlelen has been missing since April 2019, not appearing in any productions and presumably living under a different identity. Fans have tossed around conflicting narratives about her disappearance, with one side believing she acted in an attempt to protect her son from abuse, and the other that Mlelen acted maliciously, and that she will be arrested as soon as authorities find her. 16th, Richie Edwards. The guitarist for the Welsh alternative rock band Manic Street Preachers disappeared on February 1, 1995. Edwards became the band's main lyricist and openly discussed his battles with depression in interviews, using his art as an outlet for his inner turmoil. The day of his disappearance, the songwriter was set to travel to the U.S. with the band, but his abandoned car was instead found near the Severn Bridge, a site that had become infamous for people who'd lost their lives. Edwards' body was never found, although some of his fans have claimed to have seen him in India and the Canary Islands. 17th, Lord Lucan. Richard John Bingham, the 7th Earl of Lucan, most commonly known as Lord Lucan, disappeared after supposedly failing to kill his wife on November 7, 1974. The 39-year-old had been embroiled in a bitter custody battle with his wife, Veronica Duncan, following the breakdown of their marriage. Lucan had an addiction to gambling and was a heavy drinker, which ultimately resulted in him having to move out of their family home. The night of the incident, Veronica and his kids were having dinner while their nanny, Sandra Rivet, was preparing tea in the basement kitchen. Lady Duncan grew suspicious as she did not come back in a while. When she went down to see what had happened to Sandra, she found the kitchen in total darkness and was hit in the head by a blunt object. "Be quiet," she heard, in what she would later reveal to be his husband's voice. Scared, Veronica took to the streets to ask for help, shouting, "I've just escaped from being murdered. He's in the house. He's murdered the nanny." When police arrived, they found the nanny's body in a sack alongside a blood-covered lead pipe. Reports say Lord Lucan fled from London to Sussex and was never seen again. 18. Ambrose Beers. Beers was a celebrated writer and editor who mysteriously vanished after traveling to Mexico in October 1913. The 71-year-old departed from Washington presumably in an effort to immerse himself in the revolutionary conflict of the Latin American country. Reports state that he successfully passed through Louisiana and Texas, crossing through El Paso into Mexico. Beers is said to have joined revolutionary leader Pancho Villa's army as an observer, witnessing key historical moments like the Battle of Tierra Blanca. His last known communication was a letter he wrote to Blanche Partington, a close friend, on December 26, 1913. "I leave here tomorrow for an unknown destination," it read. Beers disappeared without a trace, with numerous theories emerging soon after about his whereabouts. 19. Theodosia Burr Alston. Theodosia was the daughter of the third U.S. Vice President, Aaron Burr. The 29-year-old was heading to New York to reunite with her father after the death of her 10-year-old son to malaria. She disappeared while sailing aboard the Patriot on December 31, 1812, a fast ship that served as a privateer during the war. The vessel's weaponry was dismantled and hidden below decks, and the ship was said to have been laden with valuable cargo. The Patriot never reached its destination, and his crew was never found. Speculation at the time pointed towards piracy as the culprit, as well as a storm off the Carolina coast, ultimately sinking the ship. 20. Joe Pickler. The former child actor, best known for his roles in Varsity Blues and the 2000 Beethoven third and fourth movies, disappeared at just 18 years old on January 5, 2006. Pickler had relocated to Los Angeles as a child to pursue his acting career, which had a promising start, with appearances in at least 14 movies and television shows as a supporting actor. At the insistence of his parents, he paused his acting career in 2003 to finish high school in his hometown of Bremerton, Washington. Pickler's car, a silver Toyota Corolla, was found 4 days after his disappearance. Inside the vehicle, there was a note where he expressed the wish to be stronger and a desire for his possessions to be handed to his younger brother. While the lead detective on the case suspects the incident to be self-harm, Pickler's body was never found, making it impossible to conclusively state what happened to him. 21st. Bison Deal, the former NBA player, disappeared on July 7, 2002, during a sailing trip in the South Pacific. The 33-year-old took a trip from Tahiti aboard his catamaran, the Hakuna Matata, accompanied by his girlfriend, Serena Carlin, as well as his brother, Miles Dabord, and the ship's captain, Bertrand Saldo. Out of the four, Dabord was the only person who returned to Tahiti almost 2 weeks later on July 20th. The police launched a sting operation in September, discovering that Dabord had forged Daley's signature to open mailboxes in his name and to buy $152,000 worth of gold. The police found that Dabord had fled to Mexico and that the Hakuna Matata had been left in Tahiti under a different name, with its name removed and bullet holes patched. Dabord took his life by overdosing on insulin On September 27th of that year, the FBI discovered that he had bought $200 in weights in order to sink the bodies of his victims to the bottom of the sea. 22. Rico Harris. The former Harlem Globetrotter, Rico Omar Harris, disappeared on October 10, 2014, while driving from California to Washington, where he planned to start a new chapter in his life. Before that, the basketball player struggled with addiction after his career ended, returning to his mother's house in Alhambra with no job prospects. He started using heroin, meth, and crack cocaine, getting arrested over 100 times throughout the 2000s for public intoxication. He met Jennifer Song, who would become his fiancée after completing a rehabilitation program and working as a security guard. Harris was excited to turn the long-distance relationship he had with his partner into a live-in one. He had secured a job interview for a position as a property appraiser in Washington, as well as updated his old driver's license to that state. The player visited his family before departing to Washington, hoping to get some closure about his past. Then he drove north of Sacramento, leaving a message to his fiancée about going up to the mountains to rest. 23. Jim Sullivan. The singer-songwriter and guitarist mysteriously disappeared in New Mexico on March 6, 1975. He married his high school sweetheart Barbara, and the two would move to Los Angeles in 1968. His wife landed a job for Capitol Records, and Sullivan was able to release 2 albums, 1969's UFO and 1972's Jim Sullivan. Despite having some Hollywood connections, his records failed to make the impact he was expecting, and his career issues translated into marriage troubles, causing his separation from Barbara in 1975. Unable to see a future for himself in Los Angeles, Sullivan planned to move to Nashville to restart his career, but disappeared on his drive there. His abandoned car was later found with his belongings inside, including his guitar and unsold records. Despite searches, Sullivan's fate remains unknown, and theories about his disappearance range from foul play to self-harm. 24. Forrest Shab, or Die, Forrest Shab, mostly known for his stage name DY, was hailed as one of the best emerging Canadian artists by the Billboard February 2010 issue before his disappearance, on November 18, 2010. The rapper made plans in August of that year to fly to Mexico and disappeared soon after landing in that country. Canadian police launched an investigation on his whereabouts, but to no avail. Speculation at the time stated that his disappearance was linked to drugs and organized crime, as well as to the termination of his contract by CP Records, which presumably had a negative impact on his mental health.